The high demand for hemp had some unfortunate consequences. One of the industries to experience a sudden growth as a result of the shortage of labor and the demand for hemp was slavery. Before the war, there were about 2,500 slaves in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley. By 1790, they were 10,000. Although the demand for hemp declined after the war, rope and cordage were still important commodities and large-scale production required manpower. After Virginia's farmers lost interest in raising hemp due to the drop in prices, Americans in other parts of the country decided to move into the hemp market. Foremost among these new hemp producers were the farmers of Kentucky. And like their neighbors in Virginia, Kentuckians found that the only profitable way to raise hemp was through slave labor. Without hemp, slavery might not have flourished in Kentucky. On the hemp farm and in the hemp factories, the need for laborers was filled to a large extent by the use of Negro slaves. Kentucky hemp growers estimated that 3 slaves could cultivate about 50 acres. This resulted in a yield of about 35,000 pounds of fiber and a return of about $35 per acre. Many slaves preferred working on hemp fields instead other kinds of labor since it was task work. Under the task system, the slave was given a fixed amount of work for the day. If he finished his work, he could spend his remaining time as he wanted. A slave could even earn money on the task system, although his wages were minimal. For every pound of hemp, over 100 pounds he was required to break per day, the slave was paid 1 cent. A good worker could break about 300 pounds, so it was possible to earn about $2 a day. Some slaves earned enough money in this way to buy their freedom. Under the gang system, which was more common in the cotton fields, slaves worked in groups under the watchful eye of a driver whose job it was to get as much as possible out of each field. A northern visitor to a Lexington rope walk in 1830 wrote that there were 60 to 100 Negro slaves of all ages working in the factory, and they were all stout, hearty, healthy, and merry fellows, some of whom contrived to while away the time and drown the noise of the machinery by their own melody. One of the many slaves who worked in the Kentucky rope factories and who later wrote about his experience was William Hayden. Born in Virginia in 1785, Hayden was separated from his mother and taken to Kentucky when he was only 5 years old. In 1803, he was hired out to the owner of a rope walk in Lexington, where he showed himself to be so proficient that he was taken into the foreman's home. It was during this time that he learned to read and write. In his memoirs, which he wrote as a free man in Cincinnati, Hayden boasted that not only he was very good at his work, he was actually acknowledged to be the best spinner in the country. And when he asked for an increase in his wages to $6 a year, his request was immediately granted. Able to go where he pleased, he left the hemp factories of Kentucky and eventually moved to Cincinnati, where he spent the remainder of his life working as a barber in his own shop.